Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Burnt Pancakes podcast, the podcast where we embrace the mess, laugh through the chaos, and have real talk about motherhood. I'm your host, Katie Fensky, and I'm reminding moms that everyone burns their first pancake. Today's guest is one I know you are going to love. I'm chatting with Avital Levy, founder of Hi Fam and a parenting expert who is flipping modern parenting advice on its head. If you've ever felt exhausted trying to do all the right things, from gentle parenting, meeting every emotional need, being an on-demand entertainer, keeping up with all the shoulds of parenting, then this conversation is going to feel like a deep exhale. Avital helps moms break free from parenting traps and lead their families with confidence without yelling, bribing, and burning out. She's a mom of five and has over 20 years experience and reaches more than 100,000 parents around the world with her honest, research-backed, and refreshing real approach to raising resilient, grounded children. I was so excited to talk to her. I got some real practical advice on talking back, on greediness, boredom, tantrums, social media, technology, all the things that I'm dealing with right now. So make sure to listen to the end because she has a very special offer for all of us listeners. So grab your coffee or reheat it if you need to, and let's dive in to this conversation. Avital, welcome to the podcast.
Katie, thank you so much for having me.
I browsed through your YouTube channel and now I'm like, I have so many questions. I think you can help me with all my parenting problems. Not problems, but just the things I'm dealing with my three kids right now. So why don't you start by telling us how old your kids are, and then we'll get into how you help parents.
Okay, brilliant. So I have five kids. My eldest is 13 and my youngest is 4. And they're just spaced, 2 years in between. So we've got 6, 9, 11. And yeah, that's us. How about you?
You're like in the thick of it, helping all these parents who are also in the thick of it. I think that's the best part. Like you are in my shoes right now.
Oh, yeah. I'm absolutely not, a sage on the stage. I'm your guide from the side. We're in the trenches together, 100%.
Right,
yes.
right. So you help parents worldwide. How did you get into that? Did you have people coming to you? Yeah.
Yeah, I actually don't come from the world of parenting or psychology at all. And this was very much a journey that I went on for myself personally to solve my own issues and my own anxieties about parenting. When I first got married, I got married very young, and I actually didn't have that urge that a lot of women do have to have kids. It seemed like exhausting and depleting and scary. And I was just,
yes,
I
all
wasn't
of the above.
excited about it. And I come from a very, very kid-friendly, a family and culture, but it seemed scary to me. And I kind of decided, okay, but this is a human experience I don't want to miss out on. But I have to do it, empowered. I have to have information. I have to have a plan. I'm a little bit like that I like to educate myself or get a handle on things that I'm going into so I feel equipped. And so even before my first was born, I started reading quite obsessively all sorts of parenting books. So I've probably read over 100 parenting books at this point, dozens for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And it fascinated me. When you become a parent, you start to think a lot about your own childhood, about, psychology, about human development, about human society, about your values, about your relationships, about who you want to be for this kid. And you discover a level of love and sacrifice and connection and challenge that, at least for myself, I had never met before. And so that's how I started being fascinated by parenting. And I actually come from the world of design. So I was working as a designer. I did identity design and strategy and all sorts of problem solving within startups and the entrepreneurial world. And what I kind of found was there was this really interesting convergence between design thinking, which is solutions oriented, which is always looking for the most elegant, easy, beautiful solution to real life problems to make our lives more streamlined and aesthetic and pleasant and fun, and parenting, which presents a million problems and dilemmas and questions, all day, every day. And so I started kind of summarizing everything I was learning. I eventually did some coaching training, but really I'm just another mom who's kind of obsessed with this. And I'll just say one more point is that my edge beyond design in the parenting world. The downside to my work is that I'm not a PhD or psychologist or researcher. But that's also the upside, because I'm really focused on very pragmatic, down to earth, grounded solutions, and on mindset. I'm really focused on us all feeling more empowered and more joyful and, I guess, excited about this adventure of motherhood, as it were.
And I think that makes you more relatable, that you're not the expert who's trying to tell us what we're doing wrong. It's like, this is what I'm going through. Like, I feel like I can relate to you a lot more.
Well, yeah, because I'm really testing these ideas out in my own lab. And, I often have to start my coaching sessions or my group sessions saying, I just came off a very challenging thing with my 13-year-old or with my 4-year-old or with my husband. And so it's all very real for me. I can tell you that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what modern parents are going through. I read something recently that kind of talked about how, like, millennial parents or millennials are now parenting, and what their parents were like and how that affected them and how it's affecting their kids. And it was pretty fascinating what kind of like parenting philosophies are coming out now. So what are some of the modern parenting trends that you're seeing?
Yeah. So there are a lot of really positive modern parenting trends that are a reaction to our boomer parents and to their kind of the greatest generation parents before them, which is basically a little bit of a pushback or a reaction to authoritarian parenting, which was the norm in Western countries, in the earlier part of the 20th century and the later part of the 20th century. And so most of our parents, for anyone parenting today, may have lent more authoritarian, or at least they were brought up authoritarian. And that generally means very high expectations that could be, rules and punishments and consequences and follow through and a lot of structure, and sometimes also harsh reactions like shaming, threatening, punishing, and maybe even corporal punishment, which has really fallen out of favor. And that's fantastic. But it was also characterized by low support. Authoritarian parenting is characterized by low warmth, low connection, low quality time, low empathy, and that kind of thing. And so what's happened now for most of us millennial parents, and it's happening in Gen Z as well, is the swing back is very, very extreme in the other direction, where any form of correction and direction and guidance and rules and any expectations have actually been loosened to a detrimental effect to our kids, because expectations are actually good. Punishment boundaries, and spanking and yelling is not good, but expectations and boundaries, as you say, are really good. But what's good about today's parenting is that we offer high support. So we offer a lot of warmth, a lot of acknowledgement and validation, and a lot of feedback and a lot of quality time. And that's something that is very rare in parenting around the world and throughout history. Parents did not spend, especially not one-on-one time with their children, but even just not that much time. Kids were off running around with other kids, with teens, being apprentices or, rough and tumbling and being free range. And that's the type of thing that doesn't happen anymore. And there's good sides to that, but there's mostly downsides for us as parents and for our children.
Yeah, I see that in myself. Like my mom used to say, "Oh yeah, go play at the neighbor's house," and I would go there. There were no cell phones. You just went until you came home. Well, now my son is like, "Can I ride my bike?" Like a couple streets over to go to this shop, and my instinct is like, "That's far. I won't know where you are. Like you can't get a hold of me," and it kind of freaks me out a little bit. I'm trying to let him be more adventurous because I see that he's yearning for that, but it's kind of a struggle that I've had.
Yeah, you're very much not alone. That's something that parents across the West are experiencing. It's particularly tough in America, where there's even be criminalization of parents who allow their kids to go to the playground or that kind of thing. So the trouble with all of these cultural issues in our parenting is it's very hard for us to adjust them on our own, right? It's kind of something that needs to become a norm, and it becomes very difficult if you're the only mom allowing your kid to ride the bike in the neighborhood. Then you feel like, oh no, I'm going to be judged, right?
I totally feel like my neighbors are like, I want my boys just go outside, go play in the front yard. But then I worry, like, are they going to be like those Fensky boys always running amok and their mom's not watching them? And I'm like, oh
Right.
God, I don't want to be that parent.
Right. Right, because we're so afraid of judgment today in a way that I don't think our moms really considered very much.
Mm-mm.
They didn't have to because it was the norm, but also because there wasn't social media. People were, a lot less
Absolutely.
concerned and with other people's business in that kind of way. And that is a big challenge for us today, for sure.
Oh, for sure. Oh, I'm feeling all of that. What about the trend gentle parenting? Because when I hear that, like it stresses me out because then I start feeling like I am definitely not always gentle. Not that I'm like going around hitting my kids, but I have emotions and I'm not always like, "Oh, honey, how are you feeling?"
Yeah.
How is where did that trend come from and is it the right way to parent?
So I've been talking quite a lot about this recently. And by recently, I mean the last 4 or 5 years.
Mm.
But at the beginning of my own journey, say about 13 years ago, I found a lot of wisdom in the gentle parenting movement. A lot of wisdom in the idea of talking to your children with respect, in being really logical and fair and honest and authentic and transparent about your consequences and your rules, or explaining yourself, for
Mhm.
example, giving children reasons for your decisions, sharing power with children, all those types of things. And the idea of gentle parenting that I still really, really connect with is the idea that children do as we do more than they do as we say. And gentle
Mhm.
parenting puts a big, or at least conscious parenting puts a big
Right.
emphasis on modeling. And I think that those are wise. The
Mhm.
trouble is that what's written in the books of gentle parenting or in the research around gentle parenting is not what becomes the zeitgeist of our culture. If you go on TikTok, if you go to the playground, if you listen to moms, chatter on Reddit or on, wherever you're hearing them, what you find is that they take the ideas of gentle parenting and they strip them down to an unsustainable and very unhealthy approach to parenting, which isn't, I think, the way the authors initially intended it,
Mhm.
but it's come to be synonymous with permissive parenting. And permissive parenting, we spoke about authoritarian parenting. Permissive parenting is the opposite of that. It's the very high support, but it's the very low expectations. And that is actually even worse for kids than authoritarian parenting. So actually yelling or punishing them is not great, but it's better than not holding any expectations and not holding any boundaries. And there's a lot of trends that go along with that. We can break these down, but things like an overemphasis on empathy and emotions, which is actually creating, unfortunately, really fragile kids and young adults. There's a lot of emphasis on self-esteem, which is actually completely debunked. The whole idea of building up a child's self-esteem was a movement that started back in the 80s, and it really, really failed to constantly praise children, to make sure that they always win a trophy, those types of
Mhm.
things, to try and inflate their ego in an artificial external manner actually doesn't work. It actually, again, makes them fragile, weak, lost, confused, lack self-confidence. The idea of child-led everything. We kind of took Maria
Mhm.
Montessori's words of child-led play, which is wonderful,
Great.
but then we led it to everything else, right? Child-led everything and just affirm everything that they want, which is terrible for kids. They need boundaries, they need leadership, they
Mhm.
need guidance. They're not little gurus, even though, some of us like to imagine that they're just born wise and that they just know what they need and how they're going to set boundaries for
Right.
themselves on sugar and screen time. And it's just not true.
Right.
So those are the types of traps that we get into as modern day parents. And because of what we said before about being nervous to be judged, we don't want to be perceived as harsh or as old fashioned or as out of date or as unempathic, God forbid. And the worst thing that anyone could tell anyone in today's day and age is that you're judgy. Right, being judgy is just the worst thing, and so we're all very nervous. Oh, I'm not being judgy. No, it's just what works for me.
Yep.
We're all
Yep.
extremely, extremely uncomfortable in our own skin, scared of our own shadow. And I think it's just leading to a generation of parents that are just very self-doubting, very uncomfortable with their role.
Would definitely agree with that self-doubting because I think that all the time. I mean, oldest is about to turn 11, so you'd think like, oh, you know, I'm a pro parent now. No, I still question every day, like, oh God, am I doing this right? Like, this is so hard. So if we've got the authoritarianism and the gentle parenting, is there like a middle ground, like a third way to parent?
Yeah, so there is, and this has been really well established in research, like back in the 70s, which is that actually what children need is the high expectations from authoritarian parenting, and they need the high support from permissive parenting. And when you put that together, you get the very confusing label of authoritative parenting, which,
Authoritative. Okay.
yeah, authoritative instead of authoritarian. Unfortunately, that's how the researchers labeled it back then. It was really bad branding. But the idea is basically, balanced parenting, right? So it is pretty hands-on. Like, it is pretty intense in the sense that you're showing up for your kids, but you're giving them the high expectation, the rules, the consequences, the follow through. There are you see them as having standards, right? You can do this. You will help with this. You will succeed with this. You will try again. You will not hit, right? We have all these expectations, but then the difference is that we also offer the support to help them meet those expectations. So here, I'm going to teach you how. I will mentor you. I will set up my home in a way that is inclusive and helpful for you. I will make sure that your needs are met. Dental parenting gets obsessed with unmet needs. Oh my gosh, my child's hitting because of unmet needs, because they're hangry, because they're tired, right? All these kinds of things. That's taking it too far, right? But we do need to meet our children's needs and make sure that they're getting, the help, the teaching, the information, the love, the shelter, the food, the nutrition, the sleep that they need in order to be their best and to behave well. And then we need to expect a lot of them. And I think parents today are very squeamish about expecting anything of their children whatsoever, to be honest.
Right. Okay. So let's look at this parenting style. Here's a couple of things that I feel like my kids and I need work on. Talking back. My husband and I have said to our kids all the time, we did not talk back to our parents the way you can run your mouths. Like, it shocks me. My 11-year-old, I'm like, just stop already. Like, you're making it worse. So if I'm following that method of parenting, what do I do to handle his talking back?
So first of all, I totally relate. We have the same issue, and I feel the same way. I would never have said that.
And then I was like, is it because I was scared of my parents? But I'm like, I was never scared of my parents. I just knew, well, maybe I did talk back. My mom will probably have a different memory of this story. But like, in schools with coaches, like, you do tend to see it in this generation of kids.
Yeah. So it's funny. I think we do misremember a little bit, because I think we did talk back to our parents a little bit. I kind of have a muffled memory of my mom saying something similar to me, right? Something like, I would never have spoken to my parents that way. I think she said that to me as well.
And she's like, he sounds just like you, Katie.
Right, exactly. It's that curse that mothers put on their children, that you should have a child just like you, and then you do. But a few things about that. I think, first of all, there is a small kernel of positive in that today's children are slightly less respectful of elders, because we have had a bit of a breakdown of authority as this be all and end all that you should never question, and that you should never, and there is something in raising children who can stand up to a negative authority. If a teacher's telling them to do something bad, dangerous, unsavory for whatever reason, then we want them to be able to say, just because you're a teacher doesn't mean I'm just going to, zip my mouth and not say anything. So there's something to it. But what we fail to do is teach them the difference between benevolent authority, positive authority, leaders that you do need to respect, and negative authority. So a lot of parents today will say stuff like, well, I'm glad that my daughter talks back to me, because I need to raise a strong, independent woman, and she should be able to talk back to anyone. And I'm thinking, oh God, no, that is not helping this child.
It's going to be a rough world she's in.
Exactly. Because you do have to actually learn to respect people. You have to learn to respect everyone. And then you have to learn to respect elders or people in authority. The police, your teachers, your parents, they do deserve more respect than just your friends. They sacrifice a lot. They've got a lot on the line. They've got a lot of life experience. And we wouldn't want the type of society where kids are just being rude. And so I think that when our children talk back to us, it is incumbent upon us to correct them, but we can do so in a warm way. So rather than shaming them and being disgusted and raising our voice, which happens when we're mad, okay. But ideally, it would be something like, whoa, it's very hard for me to listen to your request when you're talking so rudely. Take a moment and please rephrase that. And then I would love to help you.
I like that.
Right? It's something like that where we just are asking that, hey, that sounds incredibly disrespectful. It actually hurts me to hear you talk to me that way. I'm your mother. I don't want you talking to anyone that way, especially not your parents. If you'd like help with something, I suggest you ask in a polite way, and then I can consider your request, right? Something along those lines where we are setting a boundary. It's very clear we're not going to be spoken to that way, but we also aren't losing it and exploding and, taking away screens from here until they're out, right?
Yeah.
Which never works.
And I like
anyway.
that you're still giving them the opportunity to be part of the discussion. Like we can discuss this, but it needs to be done in a manner that's respectful. And they're going
Yeah,
to
and
use
it's just a
that
good
skill
life
their whole life.
lesson. Exactly. It's a good life lesson. Like whenever you want something from someone or whenever you better treat them with respect. You'll get a better result, right?
Right.
So they need to
Right.
practice that.
I like that. I like that a lot. What about greed? Like I wrote down the word greed. Like I feel
Yeah.
like my kids feel like they're entitled to everything. And maybe this is how I was growing up too. But
Yeah.
they just like want everything and they don't realize like you don't always get everything. What's
Mhm.
a strategy we can use with that?
So this is a really big one, and it's funny because most of us are extremely lucky and privileged to live in a prosperous and peaceful society,
Mhm.
where kids really, they might go through some tough stuff. There might be a divorce, there might be a disease, there might be
Right.
financial downturn, but on the whole, life is pretty cushy,
It's good. It's good.
and right, life is good. And then there's you layer on top of that abundance and uh, materialism and Amazon Prime, and
Mhm.
children really
That's it.
can
They
be,
think
you know.
they get things instantly now. Like I remind them all the time, when I was growing up, we'd have to go to the store to get that, or it would take 2 to 3 weeks for it to go. And they're like, I ordered that from Amazon. Why isn't it here today? I'm like, because we ordered it yesterday. It's going to take a while.
1 hour delivery.
Oh
Yeah,
gosh.
exactly. So I actually think this is one of the biggest projects for Western parents today, is to actually counterbalance that and contend with that. So one of the unpopular ideas in parenting is in gentle parenting or whatever the culture today
Mhm.
is that, first of all, we shouldn't have shame for anything. You should never feel any kind of shame. And I think that's doing us a disservice. I think it's appropriate to feel shameful or ashamed when you've behaved in wrong ways. That's kind of your emotional system telling you that you're not proud of
Mhm.
how you showed up.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think you need to shame your children. I don't think you need to like stand there, degrading them. But I think it's appropriate for children to understand that greed is wrong, okay, or sinful in religious language, or
Right.
harmful to them in psychological language, right?
Right.
It's not good for you. You appear entitled and unlikable to your
Mhm.
surroundings when you're that way, and it creates a bit of a monster in you, right? That we all need to learn to delay gratification and to
Mhm.
wait and to be patient and to be grateful for what we have and to treat our things with respect and that kind of thing. So the reason I'm saying all of this is because another thing that we have in our culture is that we don't want to do any kind of hierarchy. When we were growing up, maybe our parents said something like, you have to finish everything on your plate because there's starving children in the world and you're not grateful for
Mhm.
what you have. And today that's very much fallen out of favor. And I understand why. Like, there's no logical connection between you finishing your plate
Right.
and that child getting food.
Right.
But there is a kernel of truth to that, which is that when you can take the perspective of other people in the world throughout history and in most of the world today
Mhm.
who do not have Amazon, who do not even have a roof over their head or
Right.
food on their plate, and who would really, give everything to have just a kernel of what you have in your life, then you start to be a little bit more grateful. And I do think it's appropriate for children who grow up in abundance, like mine, like yours, to know that that is not the norm, that
Mhm.
is something that people fought and died for, literally, that is
Mhm.
something that people hustled and grinded for, right? And that it's a tremendous privilege, and that the appropriate response to it is gratitude,
Yeah.
because you can have everything in the world. You could have everything in the world as a child, but if you're grateful for what you have, then you won't be an entitled,
Yeah.
spoiled brat. You won't be. You'll
Right.
be pleasant to be around. You'll
Right.
know how to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just trying to teach my middle son. I think, went to my mom's house and they had like a little treat there. And then they came home and the ice cream truck came by our house. And I was like, hey guys, we had a treat earlier. We had this. He, like, the rest of the day was moping around, like, I didn't get to go to the ice cream truck. And I was like, don't you remember the treats we had earlier? Like, can't you? And he just could not get over it. So I think working on gratitude would definitely,
Well, and that's
definitely help
such a
him.
it's a normal reaction
Mhm.
for a kid to be like that. Like
Yeah.
my kids do that the whole time too. But I think what would be and I think you did absolutely the right thing in saying no, because that's part of it, is that they have to get
it's
used
so
to
hard.
sometimes hearing no, right?
Seeing his little face all sad, and it's like, oh, it doesn't come around here often. But I was like, no, like you've had plenty.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right, right. So running out of their favorite cereal and not restocking straight away, or sometimes saying, you know what, your friends are getting that, but we're not, because we're going to save the budget for something else, or because we've had enough, or because I just don't think it's the
Mm-hmm.
right thing for us right now, or having to wait for your birthday to get that thing, or to save up your allowance or work,
Yeah.
walk the neighbor's dog to earn money for that thing. Those types of things are all going to build more of a sense of, earning, and of
Mm-hmm.
delayed gratification, and of waiting. But also, I think it's okay. He has his sulk. My kid, let's say, has a sulk about the ice cream truck. And afterwards, I can say something like, I get that you just felt like all I want right now is ice cream. And so you felt really hard done by, and you felt like you really missed out, and you were upset, and it was hard for you to get over that. But I want you to know that I really believe that you are capable of seeing something you want, and realizing that you're not always going to have it. My mom used to tell us
Mm-hmm.
that we'll shop with our eyes, right? That you can go to a shop and you can enjoy things with your eyes, and you don't have to own them. You don't have to always buy. You don't have to always get more. You can, like, sometimes you'll go with
I
your
like
kids to a
that.
friend's house and they have a great toy, and you're like, they're playing with this toy. Now I have to buy this toy. Sometimes I tell my kids, you know what? It's nice to enjoy it at a friend's house. We don't also have to own it. That's the whole thing, that you
Mm-hmm.
don't, you know? And so,
Absolutely.
so the point that I just want to say is that it's fine to tell him, to coach his mindset, in my opinion, not from a place of trying to shame him, but to induce a little bit of self-reflection. Hey, does that response make you proud? Like, you're old enough and you're
Yeah.
mature enough to know that we don't just buy treat after treat after treat. It's bad for our teeth. It's bad for our bank account. It's bad for the
Mm-hmm.
environment. Whatever. We just don't, or it just makes us more greedy. We don't need that. And that I would expect next time for you to say, oh, I'm a little bit disappointed, but you're right. We did have a treat this morning. Thank you for that. And next time, I'd love to have one, please. Whatever, and just help him realize that it's not appropriate to cry over ice cream, right? People cry when there's a tragedy, grief, loss, pain.
Yeah.
Not getting the ice cream you want, you can handle that.
You can handle that. Okay. What about kids playing by themselves? Because this is something I'm really struggling with, especially my youngest. As a kid, I would play in our playhouse for hours by myself, just imagining. He cannot do that. Every day it's like, Mom, can you play school with me? And I'm like, oh, just go in your room. Hey, have your imaginary students. He's like, no, I need you. He like needs me to play with him. Did I create that? Like, why can't my kids just be okay just playing by themselves?
Is this all your kids, or you're talking about one specific?
Okay. I noticed it a lot in my oldest, and I thought he was the only for a little over 3 years. So he had all of my attention. And I think I was that kind of mom that's like, I need him to be entertained all day. I need to make sure he's busy. Let's do this craft and this. So I think he was a little bit like that. And then I thought with my third, like he was a COVID baby. So he had people to play with and look at his entire life.
Yeah.
But now he's doing that where he doesn't want to play by himself.
Yeah.
So it's both of them.
So I have so much to say. I've written a whole book about this. Give me your address and I'll send it to you. But look, there's a lot of different things to say about this. But the main mindset I want you to realize is that independence is a muscle. And like muscles, they need a little bit of stress, a little bit of strain in order to grow stronger. And if you don't use them, you lose them. So if a kid is constantly entertained, if you answer those calls, right, if you find him things to do, etc., he will not build the muscle. So there has to be a little bit of pain to get the gain, right? And that pain is, boredom.
Right? I was just thinking the word boredom. They just have to be bored.
They really do. They have to be bored. Now, we're lucky. We just spoke about living in an amazing society where there's a lot of stuff. And I'm sure you have puzzles and Play-Doh and, toys and all this stuff in the house. But that is the tools of play. They need the muscle of play to actually start to activate their imagination and their time, right? So you've got the weights in your house. Now they have to go and lift them.
Actually do
it. Right. And that's something that you can help through design. We spoke about my background in design. One of the things I teach in my book is setting up different play zones: imagination play, messy play, focus play, where you're doing more homeschool style or puzzles or scientific experiments, movement right? Which is where you're maybe having indoor swings or monkey bars or just a crash mat on the floor to wrestle, and you have 3 boys, so I bet that could happen
Lots
quite
of
a lot in your
wrestling.
house. Yeah, martial arts and all of that stuff. And then maybe also a quiet zone where it's reading and it's unwinding and relaxation. But I think when you set up the environment, and then the biggest challenge for us modern day parents is removing ourselves, is becoming unavailable, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm cooking now, I'm on the phone now, I'm listening to a podcast, I'm doing laundry, I'm just not available. And that is something that, I think can maybe worm its way into feelings of guilt, or like, should I be there for them? Does he need my attention? But I want to just flip that around for you and say, it's so good for them. Like, it's so, so good for them and for you to develop that muscle, right? It really gives them, we spoke about the failure of the self-esteem movement, and it failed because adults can't tell kids that they're creative and smart and clever and strong and productive beings. They can't. That's something you have to experience for yourself in an embodied way. You have to say, I sat here, it was hard to do, I built it, it crashed, I built it again, I was persistent, now it's here, everyone's admiring it, it's cool, I've got it. And you have to actually have that internal experience of success in order to build confidence. And success for kids looks like play, right? It looks like, I managed to do a roly-poly on the floor. I built up my handstand skills. I made a drawing that really looks like a dog. Those are the types of things where they exercise that muscle.
Yeah, I love that. I just have the hardest time, like, just getting him to, like, just go do it. I do notice sometimes when he is kind of playing by himself and I like catch him, he gets embarrassed. Like, he's like, oh, why are you watching? Because I can see him like playing quiet, like talking to himself quietly. And I'm like, oh, it's fine. Keep going. It's so cute. Like, I love watching
it's magical.
But
it's
I'm
magical.
Like, don't be embarrassed. I did that for hours. I played house. I played school. Like, it's fine. You can do it. Summer's coming up. And I'm like, I keep reminding my kids, like, it's okay to be bored. That's when you get creative. That's when fun things come about. But they're like, oh, I'm so bored.
Yeah. One of the best solutions to boredom is chores. It's like, oh, you're bored? I have plenty of things to give you to do.
Yes. I'm doing that.
But you know what? It's great if he's getting into that, like, whispery, playing imaginatively. The reason he's embarrassed when you catch him is because there is something somewhat private, about that world. And it is perceived maybe as also as very young and babyish for some kids. Like, I played like that till I was at least 12.
Oh, yeah.
But the thing is that, one thing I just tell all parents is just to never interrupt. If it's happening, you've got to tiptoe, like, remove yourself from the room. Just let them, because it's like, it's the state of flow, right? What Mihai Csikszentmihalyi has coined as flow, where you lose inhibition, where you're not thinking about yourself. You're just in your world. You're productive. You're challenged. You're excited by what you're doing. And if someone then comes in and is like, "Oh, what are you doing?" Oh, that's so sweet. Then you just feel like, "What? No, don't look at me." So we have to just remove ourselves. That's the best we could do.
Let them go. Okay. Something that my parents didn't have to deal with in parenting is the whole, like, social media and the level of anxiety that kids go through today. So what are some things? Like, my oldest keeps asking for a phone, and that is one of the hardest things that we've had to, like, stick with and say no to, because we keep getting it's not fair, everyone has it. But I've just heard so much about the pressure of social media, and even just like the messages that go back and forth. So how do parents navigate the technology in this world of parenting?
Wow. Well, congratulations. Huge kudos
I don't know.
to you that you have resisted even until the age of 11. That's not easy. So I'm really,
oh God, it's tears in the car the other day when he was like, they're bullying me because I don't have one. I'm like, I don't think they're bullying you. I think you're probably feeling like, I don't have a phone. All my friends do, but we cannot go there yet.
Yeah. So one of the things I love about some of the schools that my kids are in is that the parents have kind of Jonathan Haidt style. He has this whole idea, organized kind of a contract between the parent body where we're all signing in that we won't give our kids a phone until after 6th grade, for example.
Okay.
Or, you could decide. But it's kind of like what we were talking about riding your bike outside. It's very hard to do these kind of things alone. The peer pressure is immense. And if other parents, if their kids are all getting together on WhatsApp and your kid is the only one who doesn't have it, it becomes very, very difficult. So I do advocate for as much kind of community involvement with school, with other parents. And sometimes it's just being the first one to say, hey, does anyone else worry about, cell phones? Can we all agree that at least our 5 kids are not going to have, and that helps. Because I can say to my 11-year-old, listen, buddy, I signed a contract. You can't have one until high school. So I'm sorry.
That's just allowed to.
It's not even my choice.
I had one other mom reach out to me at school because she's like, hey, I heard like all the boys play video games, but she's like, I heard Ronan say he cannot play until the weekend. So we made a rule like you can only play video games on the weekends because it was getting out of control. Like it was like, oh my God. She's like, how did you do that? Because I need to do that with my son. She's like, it's a problem. Like I can't, all these kids are playing. And so we both like connected over like, we don't want our kids on this all the time. How are you doing it? So now I can say to him, hey, Lucas isn't on it either. Like he can't play on the weekdays.
Exactly.
So at least now I have like an ally. I'm like, you're not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. But then I feel like it's the two of us. And there's a lot more
which
that
isn't
do.
enough. Yes, it isn't enough, but it's a start. And I will give you specifics, but I will just say anything you can do on the community level, like asking teachers to reach out, asking the school, rallying in the school to say, hey, how about this is a phone-free school or, those types of things.
Yeah.
But I also want to say there are grades of technology and there are levels that you can slowly step onto this treadmill instead of just going full force ahead.
Full thing. Okay.
Like my 13-year-old in his school, the teachers actually communicate via WhatsApp, via all sorts of apps. And so he does now have a smartphone, and that's why we started. However, he has a smartphone that's much more similar to a dumb phone in the sense that it doesn't have full internet access. He does have WhatsApp, but we monitor it. It has heavy parental controls. He doesn't have any entertainment on there, and he does not have any social media except for WhatsApp, if you count that as a social media.
Right. I love that.
And so you can go from no phone to a dumb phone for a few years. So, hey, you can call your friends, you can call me, no problem, but there's no internet, and a dumb phone, I would give my 9-year-old a dumb phone, no problem. Like just to be able to call, it's really like an old fashioned phone that does nothing, right? But then the real issue is internet connection, right? The real and the worst issue is social media. Yeah. And that, I do think that there's a chance, not to sound all judgmental, but I'm in this boat too. But I think that there's a chance that in a decade or two, we're going to be looking at this the way we look at cigarettes today and think, what do you mean that you were just handing those out to kids?
Yeah, I think so too. Yep.
And I think when you feel that way, like I have that level of conviction, you become a bit more immune to all the pester power, right? But everyone has, everyone has one. Sorry, I care about you too much. And the truth is,
it's because I love you. You don't love me. And I'm like, I do. And I've done some research. He's like, that research is stupid. Like, in 10 years,
it is stupid to him. I get it. He won't understand. It's not the type of thing he'll ever. Well, he will ever, like you say, he'll thank you in the future, but not right now. He's never going to concede. Although I will say, even my 13-year-old will say, I can see how it disrupts my attention, or I can see how I'm on it too much, or I can see, that kind of thing. And we are lucky in the sense that it is a little bit easier with boys than with girls, in my opinion. Video games is harder, but social media is easier.
Yeah. And the self-esteem aspect and the anxiety. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, really for my daughter, it's like a hard no on any kind of social media. I would rather she has a phone that doesn't have a camera, for example. There are certain aspects by the way, social media.
Is it hard to find a phone without a camera? Do they make those?
It's very hard to find. Yes, they make them just especially for people who, like these dumb phones that you want. It's, that actually is when social media became so detrimental to kids, is when the camera was introduced on the phone and it had a front camera. So suddenly people were taking selfies and selfies changed the entire game. But I think a lot of parents, are turning a blind eye or don't realize or are just too frazzled and busy and overwhelmed.
It's hard
to understand that this is a very real threat to our children's well-being. It's not, I don't think it's hyperbolic. I see the detrimental effects it has on me as an adult, on my husband, and a lot of parents will say to me, well, they get addicted anyway when they're 18. Why don't, how are they going to prepare themselves for that? And to me, I'm just like, well, they'll drive a car anyway when they're an adult. Why don't they just drive one now? Like, it doesn't make any sense. I'm like, why would you have a developing brain, young children who really they cannot regulate themselves. It is absolutely addictive. It is a dopamine thrill like no other. Detrimental to so many things. So I think just understanding really deep in your soul that this is something that you're committed to, finding the community who are going to, you know, be your little allies and be in your corner and help you out. And then the third thing I would say is really offering your children an inspiring alternative. And I say this because we're Jewish and we observe Sabbath. And when you observe Sabbath, you don't have any electronics for 25 hours on the weekend. And that means the adults and the children and everyone else around you. So we're very, very lucky in the sense that there's kind of this peer pressure because no one's on a screen. And I know that that's very hard to recreate without that. But what I wanted to just say is that many parents are like, oh, there's so much battles and whining and arguments about the screens that I just let it go and I just give in. And I want to say, yes, when you let it go and just give in, there are less battles. But also when you set a very firm, strong boundary, there are less battles. I don't have my kids never ask for the screen on a weekend because they know. It's just why would they even ask? It's a waste of breath. Right. And so you can get around the battles by having no boundaries or by having strong boundaries. And I would rather people have strong boundaries. They're hard for a week or two, but then they become habit, you know? And I just think then it's protective. Look, you've got nothing, you know, if it turns out the screens were great for kids, okay, they'll catch up when they're 17, you know?
Right.
But if it turns out that it screws up their entire development, which I think is the more likely case, then you did the smart thing and you held firm on something that's hard to hold firm on. And just one more word about the other inspiring things. Kids today and parents today, we're so screen oriented that we don't remember that there are real life activities, right? There's baking, there's martial arts, there's going out with friends, there's riding bikes together to the library, there's just being in the forest with your dog. There's all these amazing things that you could be doing and should be doing. And I think developing skills, being part of a household, I said chores before, I really mean it. I think chores should take up time for kids every single day, you know, working on your skills, going to a debate team, going to gymnastics, these types of things, and then practicing at home and getting creative and getting into independent play. Those things can only really happen if we go through the threshold of boredom. If the screen isn't available, if mom's just saying, this is what it is. We figured it out as kids. We didn't have social media. They are wired to figure it out too. We just have to create the environment and the boundaries to hold that in place.
Oh my gosh. I love that so much. It's like inspiring me to think like, what other boundaries can we set and stick to? You know, we can stick to them.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about the HiFam method and like the community that you have for parents? Because I am loving everything that you're saying.
Yeah, amazing. So HiFam is a cute little acronym for harmony in family and marriage. And what I do inside of the HiFam studio, which is my membership and my community with members from all over the world, is that I help you to build a strong family culture. So it's all about how to set up my life, right, in a way that is attuned to my values, to the vision that I hold for my family. And I think sometimes I say that and people are thinking, vision, I'm just getting through the day, like just get me through bedtime. What are we even talking about here? But when we first started our family, when we first dreamed up having a baby, or when we were pregnant for the first time, or the first time we saw that little baby, there was a flicker or a larger goal, purpose, mission that we were called to. There was something that was endowed with a ton of meaning somehow, for some reason, right? And I think that's because we all actually know that we're more than just chauffeurs and babysitters and providers. We're guides to these little people. We're their mentors. We're their spiritual guides, or their, you know, their people, their unconditional love. And we had some kind of vision for what types of relationships we could have, what type of culture we could build. And I have the very kind of, I guess, aloof or maybe hubris idea that culture is downstream from parenting. Like we are the OG future makers, right? Yes. We are literally creating the future by bringing up the people who are going to inhabit it. And how we bring them up can be, in my opinion, one of the most inspirational and exciting adventures of our lifetime, or it can be one of the most, you know, kind of devastating or disappointing and frustrating projects of our lives. And so my goal is to help make it the former, not the latter. And I think we have quite a lot of good knowledge on how to do that, but culture seems to be working against us almost every step of the way. And so the things we've spoken about here today are really countercultural, and we all kind of need that support and that, those ideas whispering in our head, and that community and that village of other people who are also making the decision not to give their 11-year-old a smartphone, or to tell their 9-year-old that he can ride his bike to the library, right? Or to ask their 4-year-old, no, you can play, I'm going to do the laundry now, right? Who aren't just kind of giving in to the automated parenting that is so prevalent in today's culture.
Love that. Okay. Where do we find you? Where are all of your...
Okay. So actually I have set up I have an unbreakable family kit, and this is just for your listeners, Katie.
Oh,
so
awesome.
If anyone DMs me the word pancakes to my Instagram DMs, then I will, then I would love to send them this kit. And what it is basically, it's a quick starter guide, right? It's a clear, practical roadmap with simple, powerful shifts, like we spoke about here today, that you can implement immediately to create this dynamic, this family dynamic that you really love. It's to empower parents, right? And so if you go on over to Instagram, you can just DM me. I'm at HiFam Life, so HIFAM Life, and that's my handle on YouTube as well. And just DM me the word pancakes, and I will send you that guide. And I can also invite your listeners to a breakthrough call, which would be a personal coaching call that I usually reserve just for my coaching clients. But I would like to help anyone listening to break through the mom guilt, to quiet the overwhelm, to address the biggest parenting challenges in real time so that they can feel empowered and confident. And that self-doubt that we were talking about in the beginning of our conversation, I think it's no way to live, right? It's good to have a little bit of self-reflection. It's good to be self-critical from time to time and be like, you know what? I need to adjust this. I need to apologize for that. A little bit of that is healthy. A lot of that can ruin your life. You feel guilty, you feel shame, you can't fall asleep at night, you're constantly second guessing, you're backtracking and wishy-washy on your boundaries, you're confusing everyone, including yourself. And I want to help everyone just to feel a lot more confident, a bit more like our boomer moms, who parented us and just did what they did and didn't keep asking questions about it.
It was fine. It wasn't that hard.
And I think they mean it. I think it wasn't that hard for them.
Yeah. I always ask my mom, I'm like, do you just not remember? Or was it like not that bad? And I wasn't the easiest child, but I look back at my childhood and it looked like she loved what she was doing. So.
And don't forget, they weren't comparing their backstage to everyone else's front stage on Instagram and seeing everyone look like perfect Christmas cards and, ideal families. And they weren't inundated with a bajillion blog posts on this is the one thing all mums of boys have to do. And this is the one thing that you're screwing up your kids. They weren't. They were just parenting the way their moms parented. And not asking too many questions about it. So for better or worse, at the very least, we can say there was a sense of confidence and clarity and conviction that we are missing today and that we deserve and our children deserve too.
Right. And we can pick and choose the good from that and put it together with the stuff that we're learning now and become great parents.
Exactly.
Love this. Oh my, you are fabulous. I'm as we were talking and I'm like, I'm going to use that clip on Instagram. I'm going to use that clip. I have so many clips now that I want to use with your stuff. It's awesome. So I hope everyone checks out your Instagram and gets your resource.
Thank you so much, Katie. It's so wonderful to meet you. And thanks for your time here.
Big special thank you to Avital for answering all of my questions. I really felt like I was able to open up and share what we're going through, and she had so many good practical advice. And I think it's true that she has a sense of not being very judgmental, and because she's not the quote unquote expert, she's a mom doing this with us. It just felt so relatable. So I really appreciate this conversation. Make sure to check out her Instagram so that you can get her free resources. Her YouTube channel is amazing, so go look that up as well. I was able to check out some of her videos and got some really great advice. But this was awesome. So I'm glad you all joined me for this. And like always, I'm reminding you that everyone burns their first pancake, so just keep flipping.